Scrap clay can be used to cover pens and bows and whatever. You just have to be sure of that. Make sure that it is safe to put it in the oven. That is, do not end up as a melting. This is the one I found in Norway that is safe to use on with Fimo. Fimo is 110 degrees Celsius, and it do not deform. It bakes very well. So here I take some scrap clay that I had in my scrap pile. I think it was an attempt for a Stroppel cane that when I made it, I did not like the color, so it ended up in the scrap pile. But for this, I think it will be very nice. I want a pen that is have a little bit thick outer layer, so it's easier for my hands to hold it when I write. So I make the slices of the clay quite thick. I want a thick pen. Just cutting up. I do not pay attention to them being a special size or anything. I just think about how thick they are, because when I have placed them onto the pen, then all the gaps will be filled. The clay will move if you have gaps. And with this messy pattern, I don't mind it moving. If you want very geometric pattern on your pen, you have to pay attention and make them nicely besides each other with no gaps. But for this one, I do not mind if the clay moves a little bit. Now I almost have covered the whole of the pen, and it's time for me to close the gaps. I'll warm it up a little bit, just wriggle it. Not so much pressure first, until the clay gets a little bit warmer, softer. And then I press harder while I roll it in my hand. This clay do not, the combination I got here, do not, the colors do not bleed so much. If it had been red inside, or very much black, or maybe the green, this is the theme of stuff, then I had to use something else to maybe use a paper and burnish it instead. But this color combinations did not bleed, so I can use my hands directly onto this. The white will stay white. I just want a soft. I want it to be smooth, because I want, after the gaps are closed, I want every gap to be closed, and then I will use a knitting needle to poke a pattern in it. I think it's good to hold. I like the feeling of holding a textured pen. So first I make sure that it is very soft, very flat and smooth, and then I start to damage it. But first I want all the surprise gaps to be closed, and all the air bubbles. If I have trapped air bubbles, I want them out of there, because the damage I do to it when I make the pattern, it's the one I choose, not what the clay choose to do. If I had trapped air bubble, air bubbles are not good. You can poke them with a needle, or use a knife and cut a little hole and just flatten them afterwards. But the best is to just make sure that they are not there. And by rolling it and pressing it in your hands, instead of rolling it flat on only the work table, it's easier to make the clay stay on the pen with no trapped air by just rolling in your hands and just a little touch on the table if you want a smooth surface. The hands are better to feel if you trap air. Oh, I got a hook I want to cover. It's so thin that I have the problem holding it when I work. So I want that to be thick. And this time I do not want to make a long, like the pen. I want to use some scrap beads. I made some beads. Also, when you make paper beads, the same concept. You take a long triangle and just roll it. And I want small disc beads to be between them and to secure them onto the needle. Easy done. This is mine, and this is one way of doing it. You can roll a flat sheet and cut a rectangle that just fits perfectly onto and just smooth the seam. But I want this to be bulky. I want it to be a little bit different. And I want to get a good grip, so my hands do not get so tired. So just, the beads are raw. They are not baked. So I can push them towards the needle. But here I want the spacers to do the holding, so I'm not so worried. Just pushing it gently, because I have not baked any of these, so they can be shaped. Nails can make ugly marks, and they can be all flat, destroying everything. The hardest part for this one is to get the top covered, and I think I maybe have to skip the top bead and do a different twist, because did not want to stay there, and I could not use so much force since it's raw, the clay is raw. So we will see. Just pushing the spacer beads so they start to grab the needle, and texture them a little bit so they match the large beads, because I've poked them also with a knitting needle. So they got a little pattern on them. And the spacer beads can also have a little pattern. Spacer beads are just scraps that have turned grayish. Now it's almost just testing it, how it feels, if it can fit my hand, and closing, using the last bead to close it. Now it's ready to be baked. Hope I inspired you to make your own.